I looked into the preacher's eyes. I listened to his voice. I looked at the children all around me, and I saw that they were listening. I listened to his voice, and I heard him say that the 12-year-old in the box had something to do with her own death, but he was wrong. It was the right sermon, but maybe for a different crowd, because she was innocent. I saw her gray and puffy and worn out and tired and 12. And I looked into the box. I've never been to a funeral for someone under 30, and I knew that the sermon was all wrong for the audience. I saw the 7th grade class of the school I was working with looking up and hearing what he had to say. That somehow if she had been a better kid, she wouldn't be in the box. But it wasn't true, because she was the best kid I ever worked with. I don't think he was an evil man. I think it was full of good intention. I think he meant to save their lives. So what? She didn't do anything bad. There was no evil in her. She was the best kid I ever worked with. All her grades were A's. Every time you asked her to do something, she did. Except for in gym class, when the gym teacher said, "Get up and play volleyball," and she couldn't because she had leukemia. But when a poor kid has leukemia, when an African American kid has leukemia, the sermon is to the rest of her classmates, they gotta work harder. You gotta be better. You gotta work harder. You gotta try harder. Something about this is your fault. It's not gonna be any fundraiser at this funeral. There's not gonna be any lemonade stand, because you're a bunch of African American kids, and for that reason it must be your fault. But it wasn't her fault. She struggled her way to school every day, in the rain, in the cold, in the snow, without a bus or a van, or someone's ride because her mother was at work. His eyes were full of good intentions. His sermon was to save their lives. It was the wrong sermon for the wrong crowd, because it wasn't her fault. She was as innocent as they come. She's the best kid I ever met. But the sermon was, you gotta work harder. You gotta try harder. You gotta be better, because that's the only sermon anybody knew to tell to a group of poor kids. But it was wrong. The intentions were good, but the sermon was wrong, because she was innocent. So I looked into the box, and I felt her mother shaking. I felt the hot tears on my neck, and the hot tears were the truth, because this was the death of an innocent. And I've never been to the funeral of anyone over the age of 30 in this town. But the sermon's always the same, whether they be black kids or Latino kids or whatever. You gotta be better. You gotta try harder. You gotta work harder. But that kid worked hard every day. She struggled to and from school, unable to walk, collapsing on the front steps of other people's homes with nobody to pick her up. And so I say, to hell with good intentions. To hell with the look in his eyes. Because the kid in the box was the best kid I ever met.